In the heart of London, just a stone's throw from the bustling Ladbroke Grove, stands a humble terraced house, its nondescript facade betraying no hint of the horror it once concealed. This is 10 Rillington Place, the former abode of one John Reginald Halliday Christie, a name that would go down in the annals of Britain's most notorious killers. John Christie, a seemingly unremarkable man, was a former soldier and postman, and by all appearances a typical, law-abiding citizen. But behind closed doors, Christie's facade of normality concealed a chilling predilection for murder. In the stillness of the night, over a span of a decade, Christie systematically lured, killed, and concealed at least 8 women within the bleak walls of his house, including his own wife, Ethel. The victims were asphyxiated, their bodies hidden in the house or garden, and their disappearances written off as mere happenstance. But it was not just the gruesome nature of his crimes that etched Christie's name into infamy. His case would also be a stark reminder of the fallibility of the justice system. In a tragic twist of fate, one of Christie's victims, Beryl Evans, and her husband Timothy Evans, lived as lodgers at 10 Rillington Place. When Beryl and their infant daughter disappeared, Timothy was wrongfully convicted for their murders and hanged in 1950. Only later, when Christie's own crimes came to light, did the chilling truth emerge. Beryl was actually one of Christie's victims, her husband an innocent man executed for a crime he did not commit. This miscarriage of justice led to a public uproar that played a significant role in the abolishment of capital punishment in the United Kingdom. As we peel back the layers of John Christie's life and crimes, we delve into a world of deceit, horror, and the tragic cost of justice gone awry. The story of John Christie is not just a tale of a serial killer, but a haunting examination of the fragile line between innocence and guilt, the human capacity for evil, and the dire consequences of a flawed justice system. In the end, 10 Rillington Place stands as an ominous reminder of the horrors that can lurk behind the most ordinary of facades, a chilling testament to the darkness that can lurk within the human soul. In the grim post-war years of the 1940s and 1950s, the City of London was a place of stark contrasts. The scars from the Blitz still marred its landscape, with bombed-out buildings standing as silent, skeletal reminders of the recent past. Amidst this setting of decay and recovery, London was a city striving to return to normalcy, its citizens determined to rebuild their lives from the rubble. Nestled in this labyrinthine cityscape, in the nondescript neighborhood of Notting Hill, lay Rillington Place. It was a narrow, quiet street lined with terraced houses, their uniformity broken only by the occasional shop or public house. Number 10, a 3-story structure of yellowish brick, was indistinguishable from its neighbors, its drab facade belying the horrors that took place within its walls. The social climate of the time played a significant role in the saga of John Christie. In the aftermath of war, London was a city of transients, with many people displaced by the bombings and struggling to make ends meet. It was a time of uncertainty, of change. The societal norms and certainties of the pre-war years were giving way to a new reality, one that was often harsh, unkind, and uncaring. In this environment, it was all too easy for individuals to slip through the cracks, for disappearances to go unnoticed, for crimes to remain undetected. Women, especially those living on the margins of society, were particularly vulnerable. It was these women, desperate and often alone, who became Christie's victims. Simultaneously, the justice system was under strain, grappling with the challenges of a society in flux. The police were often overworked and under-resourced, struggling to cope with the rising crime rates in the city's poorer districts. This was a time before widespread use of forensic science, and detective work relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and suspect confessions. The case of Timothy Evans serves as a grim illustration of the tragic consequences of these limitations. The world of John Christie was one of shadows and secrets, a world where a seemingly ordinary man could commit horrific crimes unnoticed for years. It was a world where a man could be wrongfully accused and executed for a crime he did not commit, while the real killer continued his macabre spree. The backdrop of post-war London, with its upheaval and uncertainty, its struggle for renewal and justice, formed the perfect setting for this chilling saga of deceit, murder, and a justice system gone awry. Christie's horrifying spree began with Ruth Feuerst, a 21-year-old Austrian munitions worker and part-time prostitute. She arrived in England in 1937 to escape the rising tide of anti-Semitism in her homeland. In 1943, Feuerst became Christie's first known victim. The circumstances of her demise are chilling. After consensual sex, Christie, in a sudden, inexplicable rage, strangled Feuerst until she was lifeless. He then buried her body in the back garden of 10 Rillington Place. The following year, Christie claimed his second victim, Muriel Amelia Eady. Unlike Feuerst, Eady was not a stranger to Christie. They worked together at a radio factory during the war. Eady, who suffered from chronic bronchitis, was lured to Christie's home under the pretense of a special cure that Christie had concocted for her condition. He used a gas mask hooked up to a domestic gas supply. Eady put on the mask, believing it to contain a medicinal gas. Instead, she inhaled coal gas and, rendered unconscious, she was sexually assaulted and strangled. Her body joined Feuerst's in the back garden. For the next 6 years, Christie's murderous urges seemed to lie dormant. During this time, he and his wife, Ethel, carried on with their lives, hosting lodgers and maintaining a facade of normalcy. Among these lodgers were Timothy Evans, his wife Beryl, and their baby daughter Geraldine. In 1949, the killings resumed. Beryl Evans, in a state of distress over an unplanned pregnancy, became Christie's next victim. Under the guise of helping her procure an abortion, a procedure illegal at the time, Christie strangled Beryl to death. Shortly after, their infant daughter Geraldine met a similar fate at his hands. This time, however, Christie managed to shift the blame onto Timothy Evans, a move that would result in Evans's wrongful execution. The final string of murders occurred in rapid succession. Between 1952 and 1953, Christie killed at least 4 more women: Rita Nelson, Kathleen Maloney, and Hectorina McLennan, who were all lured to 10 Rillington Place under various pretenses, and his wife Ethel. Each of them was strangled, sexually assaulted, and then concealed within the premises of the house itself. These were the known victims of John Christie, each of them drawn into his web of deceit and ultimately meeting a gruesome end. Yet, as we delve deeper into Christie's story, we uncover more disturbing facets of his character, his ability to manipulate and deceive, and the systemic failures that allowed his crimes to go undetected for so long. As Christie's killing spree escalated, it was as if the walls of 10 Rillington Place absorbed the horrors within, keeping his terrible secrets hidden. The small, dingy house seemed to have a life of its own, an unwilling accomplice to Christie's monstrous acts. It was in this house that the bodies of his victims were concealed, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. Yet it was also within these walls that the evidence of Christie's crimes began to accumulate. In 1953, the horrific truth began to surface. Christie decided to vacate 10 Rillington Place, leaving behind the eerie silence of a house filled with ghastly secrets. The property was rented out once again, and it was the new tenant, Beresford Brown, who made the chilling discovery. While attempting to install a bracket on a kitchen wall, he uncovered the bodies of 3 women concealed in an alcove behind wallpaper and a cupboard. It was a gruesome discovery that sent shockwaves through the quiet neighborhood. The police were promptly alerted, and they launched a thorough search of the property. The bodies were identified as those of Rita Nelson, Kathleen Maloney, and Hectorina McLennan. However, their grisly findings did not end there. As the search continued, the garden yielded 2 more bodies, those of Ruth Feuerst and Muriel Eady. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Under the floorboards of the front room, they found the body of Ethel Christie, becoming the 7th known victim of John Christie. This grim discovery sparked a massive manhunt for John Christie, who was now a wanted man. The investigation was led by Superintendent Leonard Nipper Reed, who vowed to bring Christie to justice. The law enforcement response was swift and relentless, employing every resource available to track down the elusive murderer. Meanwhile, the media frenzy that followed the gruesome discoveries at 10 Rillington Place brought Christie's heinous crimes to the forefront of public consciousness. Yet, amidst the swift response and public outcry, questions began to rise. How had Christie managed to commit these atrocious crimes undetected for so long? What systemic failures had allowed an unassuming man like Christie to transform his home into a house of horrors? As the manhunt for Christie intensified, so too did the scrutiny on the law enforcement and justice system that had seemingly failed to prevent these horrific crimes. With each revelation, the case of John Christie continued to shock and appall, demonstrating the depths of human depravity and the chilling ease with which evil can hide in plain sight. Before John Christie was recognized as the true and horrific culprit, others fell under suspicion for his monstrous deeds. The most notable was Timothy Evans, a former resident of 10 Rillington Place, who was wrongfully convicted and hanged for the murder of his wife and daughter in 1950, crimes that Christie later confessed to committing. The case of Evans is a chilling study of miscarried justice, largely because of Christie's manipulative nature and the authorities' misguided trust in his fabricated stories. Christie had presented himself as a reliable witness against Evans, capitalizing on his past as a War Reserve police officer to earn the investigators' trust. His convincing character assassination of Evans, whom he described as violent and unstable, painted a damning picture that swayed the jury. The psychological profile of John Christie revealed a cunning, manipulative individual who could maintain an outward veneer of respectability while committing heinous acts. He was a methodical killer, carefully planning his murders and skillfully disposing of the bodies within his property. His ability to manipulate others' perceptions of him allowed him to evade suspicion for years, even as he carried out his macabre activities under the same roof as his unsuspecting neighbors. Christie was also a sexual psychopath, deriving pleasure from the suffering of his victims. This was evident in his modus operandi. He would render his victims unconscious using gas, sexually assault them, and then strangle them. The control he exerted over his victims was a crucial element of his crimes, reflecting a need for dominance and power. The prevalence of these traits, manipulation, methodical planning, and a need for control, in Christie's actions highlight the chilling reality of his psychopathy. It was this ability to deceive and control that allowed him to commit such horrific crimes undetected for so long, and even to manipulate the law into punishing an innocent man. As the hunt for John Christie intensified, the horrifying extent of his manipulative capabilities became all too clear, casting a dark shadow over the quiet streets of Notting Hill. In the wake of Evans's execution, the quiet facade of 10 Rillington Place started to crumble, revealing the grim reality of John Christie's monstrous deeds. It was the persistent smell of decomposition that first aroused suspicion. Neighbors reported the stench, leading to a search that uncovered the bodies of 3 women hidden in an alcove in the kitchen. Among the remains was Christie's wife, Ethel, who had been missing since December of 1952. Christie was nowhere to be found. The police launched a nationwide manhunt for Christie, who was eventually apprehended 10 days later. He was found wandering the streets of London, disheveled and disoriented. Upon his arrest, Christie confessed to the murders of the women found in his kitchen, as well as 4 others, including Beryl Evans and her infant daughter Geraldine. The ensuing trial was a spectacle that gripped the nation. Christie pled not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury rejected his defense. The forensic evidence against him was overwhelming and damning. Forensic pathologist Professor Francis Camps conducted the autopsies on the victims and discovered consistencies in the methods of murder. Each victim had been strangled, a modus operandi consistent with Christie's previous confessions. Moreover, the world of forensic science was rapidly evolving, and this case was among the first to use forensic entomology, the study of insects, to pinpoint the time of death. By examining the life cycle of maggots found on the bodies, scientists were able to estimate when each victim had been killed. This evidence corroborated Christie's confessions and further cemented his guilt. Witness testimonies also played a crucial role in the trial. Residents of Rillington Place testified about the foul odors emanating from Christie's flat, a grim testament to his horrific crimes. The most damning testimonies, however, came from those who had interacted with Christie in the aftermath of the murders. Their narratives painted a chilling picture of a man attempting to maintain normalcy while hiding a gruesome secret. The trial marked a turning point in the public's understanding of Christie. His respectable facade crumbled under the weight of the evidence, revealing the manipulative, methodical killer beneath. It also brought to light the grave miscarriage of justice in the case of Timothy Evans, a tragic reminder of the devastating consequences of Christie's manipulations. The story of John Christie is a chilling testament to the deceptions of surface respectability and a stark reminder of the horrors that can lurk beneath. After a 14-day trial, the jury took just an hour and 22 minutes to find Christie guilty of murder. On June 15, 1953, Christie was sentenced to death by hanging, a fate he met on July 15 at Pentonville Prison. The executioner, Albert Pierrepoint, who had ironically also executed Timothy Evans, described Christie as the most calm and composed prisoner he had ever hanged. The courtroom atmosphere throughout the trial was heavy with anticipation and dread. Every revelation of Christie's heinous acts sent a shiver through the gallery. The public, having initially been taken in by Christie's facade of respectability, reacted with horror and disgust as the extent of his crimes became evident. The media played a crucial role in shaping public opinion, with headlines screaming about the House of Horrors at 10 Rillington Place. The trial also instigated a public reckoning with the justice system. The gross mishandling of Timothy Evans's case became a focal point of public outrage. His wrongful execution, largely due to Christie's manipulative testimony, led to widespread calls for a judicial review. The public's faith in the justice system was deeply shaken, and this case would eventually play a significant role in the abolition of capital punishment in the UK. The aftermath of the trial was steeped in controversy. The Home Secretary, David Maxwell Fyfe, refused to allow a posthumous pardon for Timothy Evans, stating that there was no reason to doubt the correctness of the jury's decision. However, as public pressure mounted, a formal inquiry was instituted in 1965. This inquiry concluded that Evans had likely not killed his wife and daughter, leading to his official pardon in 1966. Despite this, the inquiry controversially maintained that Evans had killed his wife. It wasn't until 2003, almost 50 years after Timothy Evans was hanged, that an official statement from the Home Office accepted that Evans had likely been innocent of both charges. The trial and execution of John Christie left an indelible mark on British society. It exposed the horrifying depths to which a seemingly ordinary man could sink, and it sparked a critical examination of the justice system that would have far-reaching consequences. Yet for all its societal impact, the most poignant narrative is that of the victims. Women who fell prey to a monstrous predator hidden behind a mask of respectability. Their stories serve as a sobering reminder of the devastating human cost of Christie's heinous crimes. To understand the motivation behind John Christie's monstrous acts, one must delve deep into the labyrinth of his mind. Unraveling the complex threads of his psychology is a daunting task, but it is essential in grasping the chilling reality of his crimes. Many criminologists and psychologists have attempted to dissect Christie's mind posthumously, using the information available about his life and crimes. His obsession with control, his sexual dysfunction, and his ability to manipulate those around him are all facets of his personality that have been intensely scrutinized. Christie was known to have an intense desire for control. As a child, he was described as quiet and reserved, often preferring the company of animals to that of people. He had a strained relationship with his father, a stern and domineering figure, and this early experience may have instilled in him a deep-seated need for control. This need was manifested in his crimes, where he exerted absolute power over his victims. His sexual dysfunction also played a significant role in his life and crimes. Christie was known to have suffered from impotence throughout his adulthood, a condition that was often triggered by the anxiety of sexual performance. Yet he found a perverse pleasure in the act of strangulation, a method he used to murder his victims. His crimes were thus not merely expressions of violence, but were also deeply entwined with his sexual gratification. Perhaps most chillingly, Christie was a master manipulator. He was able to maintain a facade of respectability and convince others of his innocence, even when evidence suggested otherwise. His ability to manipulate was starkly evident in the wrongful conviction and execution of Timothy Evans, a crime for which Christie was responsible. He convinced the jury of Evans's guilt, thereby escaping suspicion for his own heinous acts. But these aspects only provide a partial explanation for Christie's actions. His behavior has been linked to various psychological disorders, including psychopathy and sexual sadism disorder. Yet no definitive diagnosis can be attributed posthumously, leaving much of his psychology shrouded in mystery. In the end, John Christie remains an enigma. His crimes, motivated by a complex tapestry of psychological factors, illustrate the terrifying depths to which the human mind can descend. His story is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind the most ordinary of facades. In the aftermath of the discovery of John Christie's grisly crimes, Notting Hill, once a quiet and ordinary neighborhood of London, was left in shock. The community was shaken to its core, grappling with the horrifying reality that such horrific acts had taken place in their midst. Christie's house on 10 Rillington Place became a symbol of the monstrous deeds that had transpired within its walls, a chilling reminder that evil can lurk in the most unassuming of places. The repercussions of Christie's actions extended beyond the immediate community. His case was instrumental in the abolition of capital punishment in the United Kingdom. The wrongful execution of Timothy Evans, who had been falsely accused and convicted for Christie's crimes, highlighted the fatal flaws in the justice system. This miscarriage of justice led to a heightened public outcry against the death penalty, culminating in its abolition in 1965. For the survivors and the families of Christie's victims, the scars ran deep. The horror of their loved ones' final moments was a torment that lingered, a stark reminder of the life they could have lived. Their grief was compounded by the knowledge that their loved ones had fallen prey to a man they had known and trusted, a neighbor who had lived among them. Media coverage of Christie's case was extensive, with the nation gripped by the chilling details that emerged during his trial. His crimes, his manipulations, and the subsequent fallout became the subject of countless newspaper articles, books, and documentaries, reinforcing Christie's sinister legacy in the public consciousness. In the realm of academia, Christie's case became a focal point for studies into criminal psychology, his complex personality and the motivations behind his crimes offering fertile ground for exploration. His case became an emblematic example of sexual sadism and psychopathy, contributing significantly to a deeper understanding of these disorders. Despite the passage of time, the legacy of John Christie endures. He remains one of Britain's most notorious serial killers, his name synonymous with deceit, manipulation, and unfathomable cruelty. His story is a dark testament to the extremes of human behavior, a cautionary tale of the evil that can reside in the most ordinary of men. And for the affected families, his legacy is a painful reminder of the lives that were cruelly snuffed out, of the women who fell prey to a man they believed they could trust. Yet amidst the clarity that time, investigation, and introspection have lent to this dark chapter, there remain unresolved veins of mystery that continue to perplex. The firmament of speculation is punctuated with questions that are as haunting as they are unanswerable. The most troubling of these pertains to Christie's first known victim, Ruth Furst. No traces of her were found in 10 Rillington Place, raising doubts about the exact location of her death. Was she killed elsewhere, or did Christie manage to eradicate all evidence of his first crime within his home? Another lingering uncertainty revolves around the number of Christie's victims. 7 women were found at 10 Rillington Place, but could there have been others whose remains were never discovered? Christie's own confession suggested as much, but his penchant for manipulation and deceit leaves this claim in a limbo of credibility. Questions also persist about the extent of Christie's psychopathy. His disturbing sexual sadism and apparent lack of remorse suggest a deep-seated psychological disorder. Yet, he was able to maintain a veneer of normalcy that deceived those around him for years. How did Christie reconcile this duality within himself? And what factors in his early life might have contributed to his descent into such profound depravity? Alternative theories, too, have emerged over the years. Some have suggested that Christie was not acting alone, that there was an accomplice who has thus far evaded justice. Others have proposed that Christie was not the sole killer at 10 Rillington Place, pointing to the possibility of a second murderer operating independently. These theories, while intriguing, are largely speculative, their foundations rooted in conjecture rather than concrete evidence. Finally, there is the haunting implication of the systemic failures that allowed Christie to evade detection for so long. The ignorance and negligence of the authorities, the easy manipulation of the vulnerable, and the misplaced trust of the community all played a role in this grim drama. Christie's story is a stark reminder of the need for vigilance, for scrutiny, and for a justice system that is both thorough and impartial. In the final analysis, the legacy of John Christie is a chilling testament to the capacity for evil that can exist within an apparently ordinary individual. His life and crimes serve as a grim reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink, and the devastating consequences of ignorance, apathy, and misplaced trust. The unanswered questions that surround his case serve to deepen this unsettling portrait, adding layers of mystery and speculation to an already dark tale. Thanks for listening. This has been Serial Killers with Ben Carter. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.